I had a bad feeling about my own home, so I pretended to go on vacation. While I was watching from afar, an elderly neighbor took me by the hand and said, "At midnight, you will see and understand everything." When midnight came, I fainted from what I saw. But let me back up. Let me tell you how it started. My name is Elias Ward, and for the past 63 years, I've been what you might call unremarkable. I worked as a carpenter for 40 years until my back gave out. I raised 2 kids after my wife died young. I paid off a mortgage on a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood that used to be nice before the HOA turned into a pack of vultures. I kept my head down, fixed things when they broke, and tried not to bother anyone. The thing about being unremarkable is that people underestimate you. They see the gray hair, the limp, the reading glasses, and they assume you're stupid, harmless, forgettable. They're wrong. It started 3 months ago. Small things at first. My son Caleb would stop talking when I entered a room. His wife Brianna would glance at her phone and smile in a way that made my stomach turn. They lived 2 streets over in a rental they could barely afford, always coming by to borrow things. Money, mostly, but also my tools, my truck, my time. I helped them because that's what fathers do. Every few weeks, Caleb would show up with some story about unexpected expenses. The car needed new tires. Brianna's student loans were crushing them. They needed money for groceries. I'd write a check, and he'd promise to pay me back, and we both knew he wouldn't. I didn't mind. Not really. He was my son. Then one Tuesday morning, Caleb came over for coffee. I made it the way he liked it, strong and bitter, and set out the good cookies I'd been saving. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd taught him to do homework, and he looked at me with eyes that seemed colder than I remembered. "Dad," he said, not meeting my gaze, "Brianna and I have been talking." I waited. "We think you need to start being more independent." I blinked. "Independent?" "Yeah." He shifted in his chair. "You're always asking us to do things for you, drive you places, help with yard work. It's getting to be too much." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "I ask you to mow the lawn once a month. You use my mower." "Still, we have our own lives, Dad." He stood up, brushing cookie crumbs off his designer jeans that I knew he couldn't afford. "Starting today, you need to handle your own stuff. Stop thinking I'm going to support some old man." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Support me? I'd given him $1,500 2 weeks ago. I'd co-signed his car loan. I'd let him store half his belongings in my garage because his apartment was too small. I stayed quiet. What was there to say? He was already walking toward the door. "Oh, and Dad?" He turned back with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My birthday's coming up in a couple months, end of October. I'm thinking of having a big family dinner here. You know how the relatives love your cooking. 19 people, probably. I'll text you the date." Then he left. I sat at that table for a long time after he was gone, staring at the cookie crumbs and wondering what the hell had just happened. The unease didn't go away. It got worse. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Caleb and Brianna would drive by my house at odd hours, slowing down like they were studying it. Once, I caught Brianna taking pictures of the front porch from her car. When I waved, she sped away. My neighbor 2 doors down, a woman named Mrs. Alden who was pushing 80 and didn't miss a thing, started giving me strange looks when I collected my mail. She'd lived on this street since before I moved in, and she knew everyone's business. People said she was nosy. I'd always found her kind. One afternoon, she was watering her roses when I walked past. "Elias," she called out. Her voice was sharp, despite her age. "You have a minute?" I walked over. Her roses were beautiful, red and full, thriving despite the heat. "I've been seeing your son around a lot," she said, not looking at me. "And his wife. They've been talking to other people too." "Other people?" "Real estate agents." She turned to face me then, her watery blue eyes fierce. "I'm not one to gossip, Elias, but something's not right. You need to pay attention. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? She opened her mouth to respond, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, she reached out and patted my arm. Her hand was small and bony, but her grip was surprisingly strong. Just keep your eyes open, she said softly. And if you want to know the truth, pretend to go away for a few days. You'll see everything you need to see. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. But the seed was planted. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. This house that I'd bought 35 years ago with my late wife. The house where we'd raised our children. It was mine. Paid off 10 years ago. Why would Caleb be talking to real estate agents? The thought made my chest tight. I got up and walked through the dark rooms, running my hands along the walls. In the living room, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A small scuff mark on the baseboard near the window. Fresh. Like someone had bumped it with a shoe while looking outside. I checked the window lock. It was undone. I always locked my windows. My heart started beating faster. I went from room to room, checking things. In my bedroom, I found my filing cabinet slightly ajar. I kept all my important documents there. Deed to the house, will, bank statements. It was always locked. Someone had been going through my things. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands shaking. Not from fear, from rage. The next morning, I made a decision. I called my daughter in Phoenix and told her I was coming to visit for a week. She was surprised. I never traveled, but pleased. I bought a bus ticket for the following Monday, made a big show of packing a suitcase, and told Caleb I'd be gone. "That's great, Dad," he said on the phone, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "You should get out more, have some fun." I told Mrs. Alden my plan. She nodded like she'd been expecting it. "I have a spare key to your house," she said. "You gave it to me years ago, remember? In case of emergencies." I did remember. "I'm going to use it," she continued. "I'm going to check on your place while you're gone. And Elias, I have a feeling you're not really going anywhere." She was right. Monday morning, I loaded my suitcase into my truck and drove toward the bus station. But I didn't get on the bus. Instead, I parked 3 streets over, walked back through the alley behind my house, and let myself in through the back door that I'd deliberately left unlocked. I'd already prepared the guest bedroom in the basement. It had a small window that faced away from the street, and the curtains were thick. I could stay down there for days without anyone knowing. That first day was torture. I sat in the basement, listening to every creak and rustle, convinced I'd made a mistake. This was paranoid. This was crazy. Then I heard the front door open. It was 2 p.m. I crept up the basement stairs and pressed my ear against the door. Voices, multiple voices, Caleb, Brianna, and someone else. "So as you can see," Caleb was saying, his voice bright and cheerful, "the house is in great condition. My dad took excellent care of it." "Took care of it?" An unfamiliar voice. Male, professional. "I thought you said your father still lived here." "He does," Brianna cut in smoothly, "but he's getting older. We're looking into care facilities. He'll be much happier somewhere with medical staff." "And he's agreed to this?" the stranger asked. There was a pause. Then Caleb laughed. "He doesn't really have a choice. I mean, look at this place. He can't maintain it. Last week I found him confused in the kitchen. Couldn't remember if he'd eaten breakfast. It's sad, really, but it's time." I hadn't been confused. I'd been lost in thought, remembering my wife's pancakes. They were lying. I listened as they walked through my house, pointing out features, discussing square footage and market value. The stranger was a real estate agent. They were pricing my house. "We're thinking of listing it early next year," Brianna said. "Once we get the old man settled, we just wanted to get an idea of what we're working with." Working with? I thought. This was my house. Mine. They stayed for 30 minutes. When they left, I waited another hour before emerging from the basement. My legs were shaking. I made it to the couch and sat down, trying to process what I'd heard. My son was planning to put me in a home, to sell my house, without my permission. I wanted to call him, to scream, to demand an explanation. But something stopped me. Some instinct, honed from years of watching people underestimate me, told me to wait, to see how deep this went. So I stayed hidden. Tuesday passed. Nothing happened. Wednesday afternoon, I heard the front door again. This time, I was ready. I'd positioned myself in the upstairs hallway closet, door cracked open just enough to see down into the living room. Caleb and Brianna walked in. They were alone. "I can't believe this is almost ours," Brianna said, running her hand along the mantel. "Do you know how much this place is worth?" $350,000. Easy, Caleb replied. "Maybe 400 if we stage it right." Brianna walked to the window and looked out at the street. "Your dad was such an idiot. He could have sold this years ago, downsized, actually enjoyed his money. Instead, he just sat here like a lump." "He's always been useless," Caleb said casually, like he was commenting on the weather. "Even when I was a kid. No ambition, no drive, just clocked in and out at that construction job like a robot." "Carpenter," I thought bitterly from my hiding place. I was a carpenter, and I built half the houses in this neighborhood. "At least he'll be out of the way soon," Brianna continued. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. "I found this place called Sunset Meadows. It's cheap, like really cheap, Medicaid cheap." "Is it decent?" Caleb asked. Brianna shrugged. "Does it matter? He'll probably be drooling into a bib within 6 months anyway. Early onset dementia, we'll tell people. So sad. So sudden." Caleb laughed. Actually laughed. "Once he's in there, we file for conservatorship, take over his finances, sign the house over to us. Easy." "What if he fights it?" "He won't. He's too weak, too stupid. And even if he tries, who's going to believe him? He's a confused old man. We're his loving children, looking out for his best interests." They stayed for another 20 minutes, walking through the rooms, taking more pictures, discussing renovations they'd make after I was gone. New flooring, modern fixtures, knocking down the wall between the kitchen and dining room. They were planning to erase me. When they finally left, I couldn't move. I stayed in that closet, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. The betrayal was so complete, so casual, that I couldn't wrap my mind around it. These were the people I'd raised. I'd taught Caleb to ride a bike. I'd walked him through his first heartbreak. I'd given him everything I had, and this was how he repaid me. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time lost meaning. Eventually, I made my way back down to the basement. I didn't eat. Couldn't. I just lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling something inside me shift and crack. Thursday came. I stayed in the basement, barely moving. Mrs. Alden let herself in around noon to check on things, and I heard her moving around upstairs. She didn't call out for me. She knew I was listening. That evening, around 9 o'clock, there was a soft knock on the basement door. "Elias?" Mrs. Alden's voice. "I know you're down there. Come on up. We need to talk." I climbed the stairs slowly. My whole body ached. Mrs. Alden was standing in the kitchen, her purse clutched in her weathered hands. "You heard them, didn't you?" she said gently. I nodded. "I'm so sorry." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "But there's something else you need to know. Something I didn't want to tell you, but you need to hear it." She tapped her screen a few times, then held the phone out to me. "This is a voice message your daughter-in-law left on my phone by accident last week. She thought she was leaving it for someone else. Listen." I took the phone with trembling hands and pressed play. Brianna's voice came through the speaker, bright and excited. "Oh my God, Janet, you should have seen the look on his face when Caleb told him to stop mooching. The old bastard just sat there like a kicked dog. This is going to be so easy. We'll have him in that home by Christmas and the house on the market by spring. Caleb's already talking about what car he wants to buy with the money. I'm thinking Italy for our anniversary. Somewhere expensive. Somewhere his pathetic father could never afford. The message continued for another minute. Brianna laughing about my stupidity, about how easy it would be to manipulate me, about how I'd die alone and forgotten in some cheap facility while they enjoyed my life's work. When it ended, I handed the phone back to Mrs. Alden. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "I've been holding on to this for a week," she said quietly. "I didn't know if I should tell you. I thought maybe they'd come to their senses. But after seeing them here this week, showing the house to agents," she shook her head. "You needed to know." "Thank you," I managed to say. "What are you going to do?" I looked at her, this elderly woman who'd shown me more loyalty in 1 week than my own son had in years, and I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. "I don't know yet," I said, "but it won't be what they're expecting." She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "If you need anything at all, you come find me. I mean it, Elias." After she left, I went back to the basement and sat in the dark, thinking. I could call the police, but what would I tell them? My son showed the house to a real estate agent? That wasn't illegal. They hadn't broken in. They had a key I'd given them years ago. I could confront them, but they'd deny everything, claim I was confused, and probably accelerate their timeline to get me committed. I could cut them off, change the locks, tell them to never come back. But that felt hollow, insufficient. No. What they'd done required something more, something permanent. They wanted to destroy me, to erase me, to steal everything I'd built. Then I'd show them what destruction really looked like. But I needed time. I needed to plan. And most importantly, I needed them to think I was still the weak, stupid old man they believed me to be. Friday morning, I took a bus 3 hours north to a town I'd never been to before. I found a motel, paid cash, and spent the weekend planning. I had a notebook, a pen, and rage that burned so hot I thought it might consume me. But I didn't let it. I channeled it. I shaped it. I made it useful. By Sunday night, I had the outline of a plan. It wasn't complete yet, but it was a start. Monday evening, I came home. I made sure to look tired, windblown, like I'd really been traveling. I called Caleb to let him know I was back. "How was Phoenix?" he asked, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Good," I said. "Your sister sends her love." "That's great, Dad. I'm glad you got away. You needed it." I wanted to reach through the phone and strangle him. Instead, I kept my voice level. "Thanks, son. I'll talk to you soon. Oh, before you go, about my birthday dinner, October 26th, you're still good to cook for everyone, right? You make the best pot roast." I smiled even though he couldn't see it. "Of course. 19 people, right?" "Right. You're the best, Dad." After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and laughed. It started quiet, just a chuckle, but it built until I was gasping for breath, tears streaming down my face. They had no idea what was coming. Over the next few weeks, I worked carefully. I made lists. I researched. I called in favors from people I'd helped over the years. Old colleagues from my carpenter days, friends from the VFW, people who remembered me when I was strong, capable, someone who got things done. I also started building a timeline, documenting everything, dates, times, conversations. I saved Brianna's voice message on 3 different devices. I made copies of the real estate agent's card that Caleb had left on my counter. I took photos of my locked filing cabinet with scratch marks around the lock. Evidence. I was building evidence. But not for the police. For something else. Something much worse. I also started watching them more carefully. I'd drive past their apartment at different times, noting when they were home, when they left, who they talked to. I was good at being invisible. Years of being underestimated had taught me how to disappear in plain sight. One afternoon in early October, I followed them to a coffee shop downtown. They met with another couple, younger, dressed expensively. I sat 3 tables away, hidden behind a newspaper like some kind of spy movie cliché, and listened. "The investment opportunity is incredible," Caleb was telling them. "My dad's house, prime location, easily worth $400,000. We're going to flip it, modernize everything, could sell for $500,000, maybe more." "And you said your father's on board?" the other man asked. "Completely," Brianna lied smoothly. "He's actually excited about downsizing. Says the house is too much for him." I watched as they pitched their scheme. They were trying to get these people to invest money up front for the renovations in exchange for a cut of the profits. It was fraud, plain and simple. The couple seemed interested. They exchanged glances, talked numbers. By the time I left that coffee shop, my jaw hurt from clenching it so hard. But I had more information, more ammunition. The betrayal kept getting deeper. As October wore on, the pieces of my plan started coming together. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Caleb didn't know about. I transferred most of my savings there, leaving just enough in the old account to avoid suspicion. I also went to see a lawyer, not the family lawyer who'd drawn up my will years ago, a new one Caleb had never met. "I need to make some changes," I told her. She was young, sharp, with eyes that didn't miss anything. "What kind of changes, Mr. Ward?" "To my will, and I need some advice about property transfer." Over the next 2 hours, I laid out everything. She listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression carefully neutral. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "This is legal," she said finally. "Aggressive, but legal. You're sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure." "And you understand that once these documents are signed and filed, there's no going back?" I thought about Brianna's laugh on that voice message, about Caleb calling me useless, about them planning to erase me while I was still alive. "There's already no going back," I said. She nodded. "Then let's do it." We spent 3 more sessions working out the details. By October 15th, all the paperwork was complete, signed, notarized, filed with the county. They had no idea. The week before Caleb's birthday, he called me 4 times to confirm the dinner. "You're still good to cook, right, Dad?" "Of course." "And you know, it's 19 people? Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim are coming, and their kids, and Brianna's sister with her family, pretty much everyone. Everyone who'd ever taken my help and given nothing back. The relatives who showed up for free meals and left without even saying thank you. The freeloaders and the gossipers and the ones who'd always looked at me like I was boring, invisible, not worth their time." "I know," I said. "I'm looking forward to it." "Great. Oh, and Dad, can you do your famous pot roast? Everyone loves it." "Actually," I said slowly, "I was thinking of trying something new." "New? Like what?" "It's a surprise." There was a pause. "Okay, just make sure there's enough food. You know how these people eat." "Don't worry," I said. "There will be plenty." 3 days before the dinner, Mrs. Alden knocked on my door. I let her in and made tea. "I've been watching," she said without preamble. "They're getting bolder. Yesterday, they brought another real estate agent by, and this morning, I saw Brianna measuring your living room windows." "For curtains," I said. "She wants to stage the place." Mrs. Alden's eyes flashed with anger. "What are you going to do?" I told her. "Not everything, but enough." When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, she started to smile. "Elias Ward," she said. "I've lived on this street for 42 years and I've never seen anyone like you. They have no idea what's coming." "No," I agreed. "They don't. Do you need any help?" I thought about it. "Actually, yes. I need you to do something for me on the night of the dinner." She leaned forward, her eyes bright. "Tell me." The day before Caleb's birthday, I went shopping. Not for groceries, for supplies. I bought 19 paper plates, 19 plastic forks, 19 napkins, and 19 cans of the cheapest cat food I could find at the dollar store, unbranded, the kind that's 90% filler and 10% something that might have once been fish. The cashier looked at me strangely when I checked out. "Got a lot of cats?" she asked. "Something like that," I replied. That night, I barely slept. I kept going over the plan, checking for flaws, making sure I hadn't missed anything. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and made coffee, standing in the dark kitchen and watching the street outside. This house. My house. The place I'd poured 40 years of my life into. Tomorrow, they'd all be here, expecting to gorge themselves on my labor one last time, probably already planning how to divide up the spoils after I was gone. They were in for a shock. October 26th dawned clear and cold. Autumn in full force, leaves falling from the trees in orange and red cascades. A beautiful day for a party or a massacre. I spent the morning setting up. I moved the dining room table to the center of the room and arranged 19 chairs around it. I set out the paper plates, the plastic forks, the napkins, everything precise. Perfect. At noon, Caleb called. "Hey, Dad, we're bringing some wine. Is that cool?" "Sure," I said. "Bring whatever you want. And we'll be there around 6. Is the food ready?" "It will be." "You sound good, Dad. Better than you have in a while." "I feel good," I said honestly. After I hung up, I arranged the cans of cat food in the center of the table. 19 cans in a neat pyramid. I'd removed the labels and wrapped each one in brown paper with a number written on it in black marker. 1 through 19. It looked almost festive. At 4 o'clock, Mrs. Alden came over. She was carrying a large bag. "Everything's set," she said. "My daughter's in the car outside. She has the camera equipment ready." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." She hugged me, which surprised me. She wasn't typically a hugger. "Give them hell, Elias." At 5:30, I went upstairs to change. I put on my best shirt, the navy one with buttons that my wife had bought me years ago. I combed my hair, straightened my collar. In the mirror, I looked like myself. But inside, I felt like someone else, someone harder, someone who'd been pushed too far, someone who was done being underestimated. At 6 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, put on my best confused old man smile, and went to answer it. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? The first to arrive were Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim, a couple in their 70s who'd spent the last 3 decades perfecting the art of showing up to other people's houses around dinner time. Carol was wearing too much perfume and carrying a store-bought pie that still had the price sticker on the bottom. Jim was already loosening his belt in anticipation. "Elias!" Carol squealed, pushing past me into the house. "Something smells wonderful." Nothing was cooking. The house smelled like lemon cleaning spray in anticipation. "Thanks for coming," I said, closing the door behind them. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Jim said, clapping me on the shoulder hard enough to make me stumble. "Caleb's birthday dinners are always the best. You really know how to cook." "I do my best." They made their way to the living room, and I heard Carol's voice rise in surprise. "Oh, Elias, why is the table set already?" I followed them in. "I thought it would be easier. You know how chaotic it gets when everyone arrives at once." Jim was frowning at the paper plates. "Paper. That's not like you." "Easier cleanup," I said smoothly. "At my age, I'm trying to simplify things." Carol nodded sympathetically. Of course. That makes sense. Where should we sit?" "Anywhere you like. They're not assigned." Over the next 20 minutes, the rest of the guests trickled in. Caleb and Brianna arrived with another couple, the ones they'd met at the coffee shop, the potential investors. Brianna's sister showed up with her husband and 3 loud children who immediately started running through the house, touching everything. Uncle Jim's brother came alone, already half drunk. More cousins, more distant relatives, people I hadn't seen in years, people who'd never called or visited unless there was something in it for them. By 6:30, all 19 guests were crammed into my living room, drinking wine and beer from my fridge, laughing and talking over each other. The noise was overwhelming. Caleb found me in the kitchen. He was wearing a new leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Hey, Dad!" He kissed my cheek, and I had to fight the urge to pull away. "This is great. Everyone's so excited." "Good. So where's the food? I'm starving." "It's ready," I said. "Why don't you get everyone seated?" His eyes lit up. "Perfect. Yeah, let me round them up." He went back into the living room and raised his voice. "Okay, everyone. Dad says dinner's ready. Let's sit down." There was a scramble for chairs. I watched from the kitchen doorway as they fought over the seats like children, everyone wanting to be close to the center, close to the food. Carol ended up at the head of the table, Jim beside her. Caleb and Brianna sat near the middle, the investors next to them. The children were scattered around the edges, already whining about being hungry. When everyone was finally seated, they all turned to look at me expectantly. "So, Dad," Caleb called out, grinning, "bring out that famous pot roast." I walked slowly into the dining room. The wrapped cans of cat food sat in their pyramid at the center of the table, innocuous and strange. A few people had glanced at them but hadn't touched them yet. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter, "I decided to try something different this year." Brianna frowned. "Different how?" I gestured to the pyramid. "Each of you has a plate. Each plate has a number, and each of these packages is numbered, 1 through 19. Everyone gets one." There was confused silence. "Is this some kind of game?" Carol asked, laughing nervously. "You could call it that," I said. Jim reached for one of the packages. "Well, okay then. Let's see what we've got." He tore open the brown paper, and his expression went from curious to confused to disgusted in about 3 seconds. It was cat food. Obviously cat food, with a picture of a tabby on the lid and the words "beef and liver pate" in bold letters. "What the hell?" Jim said, holding it up. "Elias, is this a joke?" Around the table, others were opening their packages. Identical reactions, confusion, disbelief, growing anger. Caleb stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Dad, what is this?" I met his eyes calmly. "Dinner. This is cat food." "Yes." Brianna was on her feet now too, her face flushed. "This isn't funny, old man. What's your problem?" The room had gone silent except for one of the children crying. "My problem?" I said, and I let the anger I'd been holding back for weeks leak into my voice. "My problem is that I've spent the last 3 months listening to you two plot to steal my house, put me in a nursing home, and erase me from existence." Caleb's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I pulled out my phone and held it up. "Let me refresh your memory." I pressed play on the recording Mrs. Alden had given me. Brianna's voice filled the room, bright and vicious. "Oh my God, Janet. You should have seen the look on his face when Caleb told him to stop mooching. The old bastard just sat there like a kicked dog. This is going to be so easy. We'll have him in that home by Christmas, and the house on the market by spring." The silence was absolute. I could hear my own heartbeat. I let the recording play for another 30 seconds, Brianna's laugh echoing through the room as she described their plans in gleeful detail. When it ended, I pocketed the phone and looked around at the gathered family. "Starting today," I said, my voice hard, "you eat your own food. Stop thinking I'm going to support you, any of you. You want a free meal? There's 19 cans of cat food on this table. Help yourselves." Carol stood up, sputtering. "Elias Ward, this is outrageous. How dare you? How dare I?" I cut her off. "How dare you show up at my house for years, eating my food, asking for favors, taking and never giving anything back? How dare my son conspire to rob me of my home while I'm still alive?" Caleb found his voice. "Dad, you don't understand. We were worried about you. You're not capable of— I'm not capable? I laughed, and it was an ugly sound. I'm capable enough to have heard every word you said to that real estate agent. I'm capable enough to know you've been showing my house to investors, lying about my mental state, planning to commit fraud. The investors Caleb had brought looked at him with sudden suspicion. We haven't done anything illegal, Brianna said, but her voice wavered. Haven't you? Tell me, did you have my permission to bring strangers into my home, to take photos, to pitch investment schemes based on property you don't own? Around the table, relatives were starting to whisper to each other. I could see the calculation in their eyes. This was gossip gold, family drama. They'd dine out on this story for years. Caleb tried a different approach. Dad, please, can we talk about this privately? This isn't the time or place. Oh, I think this is the perfect time and place. You wanted a birthday dinner with the whole family here? Well, here they are, witnesses. Let's make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of son you are. Jim stood up. Maybe we should go. No, I said firmly. Stay. I want you all to hear this. I want you all to understand what's been happening. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside. Outside, parked on the street, was a car I'd arranged to be there. Inside the car, Mrs. Alden's daughter was visible, holding a video camera pointed at the house. Everything that happens in this room is being recorded, I said. Video and audio. The windows are open. She can hear every word. Brianna's face went pale. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. This is my house. I can record what happens here, and the windows face a public street. No expectation of privacy. It wasn't entirely true. I'd checked with my lawyer. But they didn't need to know the nuances. Caleb lunged toward me suddenly, his hand outstretched like he was going to grab my phone. Give me that recording. I stepped aside smoothly, and he stumbled past me, crashing into the corner of the dining room table. Cans of cat food tumbled everywhere, rolling across the floor. One hit Brianna's foot, and she kicked it away with a shriek of disgust. Don't touch me, I said coldly. Don't ever touch me. Caleb was breathing hard, his face twisted with rage and panic. You can't do this. I'll sue you. I'll have you declared incompetent. On what grounds? That I'm smart enough to catch you stealing from me? I pulled out a folder I'd hidden behind a chair and opened it. I have documentation. Dates and times of every person you brought to my house without permission. Emails you sent to real estate agents. Text messages discussing your plans. And I have witnesses. Mrs. Alden's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come in. He has me. I've seen everything. I've heard everything. And I'm happy to testify to all of it. She walked into the room, her small frame somehow commanding attention. Caleb Ward, I've known you since you were 5 years old. Your father is a good man. He helped me when my husband died. He fixed my roof for free when I couldn't afford a contractor. He shoveled my driveway every winter. And this is how you repay him? Caleb opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had no defense. Brianna tried to rally. This is insane. You're all insane. We were trying to help. Elias is old. He's confused. I'm not confused, I said quietly. I'm the clearest I've been in years. And I'll tell you what's going to happen now. I pulled out another document from the folder. This is a cease and desist letter from my attorney. You are no longer welcome in my home. You are not to contact me. You are not to come within 500 feet of this property. If you violate this, I will seek a restraining order. Caleb's voice cracked. Dad, you can't. I can, and I am. I looked around at the assembled family, at their shocked faces, at their half-opened cans of cat food. This applies to all of you. You're vultures, every last one. You circled me waiting for me to die so you could pick over the remains. I'm not confused, and I'm not yours to exploit. Uncle Jim stood up, trying to salvage some dignity. We never meant— Yes, you did. Every time you showed up here expecting free food, free labor, free money. You meant it. You just thought I was too stupid to notice. The children were crying now, scared by the adult anger filling the room. Good. Let them be scared. Let them remember this. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. Cold air rushed in, making the curtains flutter. Get out, all of you, now! For a moment, nobody moved. Then Carol grabbed her purse and hurried toward the door, pulling Jim with her. The other relatives followed in a stampede, suddenly desperate to escape. Children were dragged along, still crying. The investors fled without saying a word, probably already writing off Caleb's scheme as a loss. Within 2 minutes, the house was nearly empty. Only Caleb and Brianna remained, standing in my dining room surrounded by scattered cans of cat food and crumpled brown paper. "Dad," Caleb said, and for the first time since this started, he sounded genuinely upset. Not angry, hurt. "Please, we can fix this." I looked at him, this man I'd raised, and felt nothing but cold determination. "No, we can't. You made your choice when you decided I was disposable. Now live with it." Brianna grabbed his arm. "Come on, Caleb. He's not worth it." "Not worth it?" I laughed again. "That's ironic. You know what? You're right. You're not worth my time. You're not worth my love. And you're certainly not worth my house." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "It's going to be mine anyway. I'm your only son. When you die." "When I die," I interrupted, "you'll get nothing. I changed my will. Everything goes to charity. My house, my savings, everything. The Humane Society is going to be very grateful." The lie rolled off my tongue smoothly. I hadn't left it to charity. But they didn't need to know the truth yet. Brianna's face went red. "You spiteful old bastard!" "Get out," I said, "before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." Finally, they left. Brianna stormed out first, and Caleb followed, but he paused at the door and looked back at me. "I'll never forgive you for this," he said. "Good," I replied. "Then we're even." The door slammed behind him, and I was alone. I stood in the silence for a long moment, listening to my own breathing, feeling the adrenaline slowly drain from my system. Through the window, I could see them on the sidewalk, Caleb and Brianna arguing, their voices carrying in the still autumn evening. Mrs. Alden came up beside me. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Ask me tomorrow." She patted my arm. "My daughter got everything on video. It's safe. If they try anything, you have proof." "Thank you." She left quietly, and I was truly alone. I looked at the disaster of my dining room. Cat food everywhere, paper plates scattered, chairs pushed askew. It should have felt good. Getting revenge. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, I just felt tired. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because what Caleb and Brianna didn't know, what nobody except my lawyer and Mrs. Alden knew, was that tonight was just the opening move. The real revenge was still coming. The peace lasted 3 days. Tuesday morning, I received a certified letter. My lawyer had warned me it was coming, but seeing it in my hands still made my stomach turn. It was a lawsuit. Caleb and Brianna were suing me for emotional distress, elder abuse, slander, and willful destruction of familial relationships. The amount they were seeking? $2 million. I called my lawyer immediately. "They don't have a case," she assured me. "This is a nuisance suit designed to harass you and drain your resources. We'll file a motion to dismiss." "How long will that take?" "Weeks, maybe months. And Mr. Ward? They're going to make this as public as possible. They've already contacted local news stations." She was right. That evening, a reporter showed up at my door. Young woman with perfect hair and 2 white teeth, holding a microphone like a weapon. "Mr. Ward, I'm Karen Foster from Channel 7 News. We've heard reports that you threw your son out of his own inheritance and had him arrested. Would you like to comment?" "No," I said, and closed the door. She kept knocking. I ignored her. The story aired that night. I watched it with a sense of surreal detachment. They'd gotten footage of Caleb being arrested. They'd interviewed Brianna, who'd made bail somehow. She cried on camera, talking about how cruel I was, how I'd turned on my own family, how they'd only been trying to help me. They made me look like a monster. The neighborhood response was split. Half the people avoided eye contact when they saw me. The other half went out of their way to tell me they supported me. Mrs. Martinez from down the street brought me a casserole. "I know what it's like to have ungrateful children," she said darkly. Wednesday, I woke to find my truck's tires slashed. All 4 of them. No witnesses, no cameras, no proof. I had them replaced and installed a security system. Cameras covering every angle of the property, motion-activated lights, the works. Thursday, someone threw a brick through my front window. The security camera caught it. Young man, early 20s, wearing a hoodie that obscured his face. He was gone before I could get outside. I filed another police report. Detective Chen came by personally. "This is escalating," he said, examining the broken window. "They're hiring people to harass you." "Can you prove it?" "Not yet, but we're building a case. Wire fraud, conspiracy, harassment. It takes time, but we'll get them." "Will I survive that long?" He didn't answer. That night, I couldn't stay in the house. It felt too exposed, too vulnerable. I grabbed a bag and drove to a motel on the edge of town. Cheap place, the kind with weekly rates and no questions asked. I paid cash and locked myself in room 14, which smelled like cigarettes and desperation. I sat on the sagging bed and tried to figure out my next move. Running felt like losing, but staying felt like waiting to be destroyed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You can't hide forever, old man. We're watching." I turned off the phone and threw it across the room. Friday morning, I woke to pounding on the motel room door. For a panicked second, I thought it was Caleb. Then I heard Mrs. Alden's voice. "Elias, I know you're in there. Open up." I opened the door. She looked furious. "A motel? Really? You're hiding in a motel? How did you find me?" "I called every cheap motel in a 20-mile radius until someone described your truck. Get your things. You're coming home." "It's not safe." "So, we'll make it safe. Sarah's arranged for a friend from the police academy to stay in the guest room. He needs a place to live anyway, and he'll provide security. You're not running away from this." I wanted to argue, but the truth was I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being scared. Tired of the whole mess. "Okay," I said. Back at the house, the police academy friend turned out to be a kid named Marcus, 22, built like a tank with a serious face and a handgun on his hip. He moved into the basement guest room and immediately started treating the property like a military installation. "Motion sensors here," he said, pointing to the corners of the yard. "Better locks on the doors, reinforced glass on the windows, and you don't go anywhere alone. I'll drive you." "I can drive myself." "Not anymore. They know your truck. They'll follow you. I have an unmarked car. It's safer." I hated being dependent on anyone, but Marcus was right, and I knew it. That weekend passed quietly. Too quietly. Marcus said it was the calm before the storm. "They're planning something big," he said Saturday night over dinner. "The harassment has stopped. That means they're regrouping." "How do you know?" 10 years of studying criminal psychology. People like your son don't give up. They just get more creative. He was right, but I wished he wasn't. Monday brought the next surprise. My lawyer called, her voice tight with anger. "They've filed a petition for conservatorship. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent and need a guardian to manage your affairs." "That's insane." "They have a doctor's note. Some psychiatrist they paid to say you're showing signs of dementia. It's fraudulent, obviously, but we have to take it seriously. There'll be a hearing in 2 weeks." "What do I need to do?" "Get your own psychiatric evaluation. Show you're of sound mind. Gather character witnesses. And pray the judge sees through their nonsense." Over the next 2 weeks, I became a specimen. I was poked and prodded and questioned by a psychiatrist my lawyer hired. He gave me memory tests, cognitive assessments, asked me to draw clocks and name animals and recall lists of words. I passed everything. "You're sharper than most people half your age," he said. The character witnesses were harder. I didn't have many friends, but Mrs. Alden agreed to testify. So did Sarah, Detective Chen, even the pastor from the church, though we barely knew each other. The hearing was held in a small courtroom that smelled like old wood and desperation. Caleb and Brianna sat on one side with their lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. I sat on the other side with my lawyer, a woman who looked like she could bite through steel. The judge was older, maybe 70, with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Caleb's lawyer went first, presenting their case. They showed video clips from the birthday dinner, edited to make me look aggressive and unstable. They had the fraudulent psychiatrist testify about my supposed dementia. They brought up the cat food incident as evidence of bizarre behavior. "Your Honor," the lawyer said in a smooth voice, "Mr. Ward is clearly not capable of managing his own affairs. He's given away his house to a stranger. He's making irrational decisions. He needs help." When it was our turn, my lawyer tore them apart. She presented my psychiatric evaluation showing I was perfectly competent. She showed the full, unedited video from the birthday dinner, including the part where Caleb and Brianna discussed their plans to steal my house. She played the voice recording from Brianna. "Your Honor, this isn't about mental incompetence. This is about greed. Mr. Ward's son and daughter-in-law tried to steal his property, and when he stopped them, they retaliated with harassment, vandalism, and now this fraudulent conservatorship petition." Mrs. Alden testified. She was fierce, describing everything she'd witnessed. Sarah testified about how I'd given her the house as repayment for saving my life. Detective Chen testified about the restraining order violations and the ongoing harassment. By the end, Caleb's lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The judge took 10 minutes to deliberate. Then he looked at Caleb and Brianna with an expression of pure contempt. "Petition denied," he said. "Mr. Ward is clearly of sound mind. What he did with his property is his business, and nothing in the evidence suggests he needs a conservator. Furthermore, I'm sanctioning you and your attorney for filing a frivolous lawsuit. You'll pay Mr. Ward's legal fees." Caleb's face went purple. "This is bullshit." "One more word and I'll hold you in contempt," the judge snapped. "Get out of my courtroom." They left, Brianna crying again, Caleb muttering threats. I sat there feeling vindicated but exhausted. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The story had attracted media attention, and now everyone wanted a comment. My lawyer handled it. "Mr. Ward has been vindicated. His son's attempts to steal his property and have him declared incompetent have failed. Justice has prevailed." That night, the story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even a few national outlets picked it up. "Greedy son tries to steal father's house," was the general headline. Public opinion turned sharply against Caleb. People who'd been sympathetic to him after the birthday dinner incident now saw him for what he was. Comments poured in on news sites. He deserves everything he got. What a terrible son. The father should press more charges. I didn't read most of it. Didn't care. The court of public opinion meant nothing compared to actual courts. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good to be believed. That weekend, I received an unexpected visitor, a woman in her 40s, professional-looking, carrying a briefcase. "Mr. Ward, my name is Jennifer Torres. I'm an investigative journalist with the Tribune. I'd like to interview you about your case." "Why?" "Because I think there's a bigger story here. Not just about you and your son, but about a pattern of elder abuse that's becoming epidemic. Adult children stealing from aging parents. Families destroying each other over inheritance. I want to shine a light on it, and your story is compelling." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to stay private, to let this fade away. But another part remembered Linda Ward's phone call. The list of people Caleb had hurt. Maybe going public would prevent him from hurting anyone else. Okay, I said. Let's talk. We spent 3 hours going through everything. I showed her documents, played her recordings, explained the timeline. She took notes furiously, asking sharp questions. When we finished, she sat back and shook her head. This is worse than I thought. Your son is a serial con artist, and you're not his first victim, just his most recent. I know. I'm going to write this story. It'll be published in 2 weeks. Are you prepared for the fallout? There's already been fallout. How much worse can it get? She gave me a look that said I was naive. Much worse, but also much better. Sometimes the only way out is through. The article came out on a Tuesday. Front page of the Tribune with a photo of me standing in front of my house. The headline, "The House That Love Couldn't Build, How a Father Fought Back Against His Son's Greed." It was devastating and thorough. Jennifer had tracked down everyone Caleb had scammed. She'd documented his pattern of behavior going back to college. She'd interviewed psychologists about family dynamics and elder abuse. She'd made him look like exactly what he was, a predator who'd spent his whole life exploiting people. The response was immediate. Within hours, the story was being shared thousands of times. Other victims came forward, people I'd never heard of. A man in Chicago who'd invested in one of Caleb's business schemes. A woman in Denver who'd lent him money for a medical emergency that never existed. The evidence piled up. By Friday, the FBI was involved. Wire fraud across state lines. The local prosecutor was building a case too. Fraud, theft, elder abuse. Caleb's defense attorney withdrew from the case. Too toxic, too public, too obviously guilty. That Sunday, I went to church again. The pastor's sermon was about redemption, about how we're all broken, but can be made whole. I sat in the pew and cried. Not for Caleb, for me. For the years I'd wasted loving someone who'd never loved me back. For the family I'd thought I had but never did. After the service, people I barely knew came up to shake my hand. "You're brave," one woman said. "You did the right thing," said a man whose name I couldn't remember. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired, but also, maybe, a little bit free. The federal investigation moved quickly. By mid-November, Caleb had been indicted on 17 counts of wire fraud and 3 counts of interstate theft. Brianna was charged as an accomplice. The trial was set for January. I was subpoenaed to testify. My lawyer said it was routine, that my testimony would be straightforward. Just tell the truth about what happened. But testifying against your own son, even a son who'd tried to destroy you, wasn't easy. Nothing about this was easy. In the meantime, life settled into a strange new normal. Marcus stayed in the basement, providing security and surprisingly good company. He was studying criminal justice and would ask me questions about human nature, about what drives people to hurt the ones they love. I didn't have good answers. Some people were just broken. Sarah stopped by most evenings after her shifts at the hospital. She'd officially accepted the house, though she still seemed uncomfortable about it. We'd sit in the living room drinking tea, talking about everything and nothing. She reminded me of my daughter in Phoenix, the one who'd moved away and built a good life far from the family drama. I called my daughter one night. We hadn't spoken in months. "Dad?" She sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said, "but it will be. How are you?" We talked for an hour. I told her everything, all the details I'd been keeping from her. She cried, then she got angry, then she apologized for not being there, for staying away. "I'm coming for Thanksgiving," she said. "You shouldn't be alone." I'm not alone anymore. Still, I'm coming. Thanksgiving arrived cold and clear. My daughter flew in with her husband and their 2 kids, children I barely knew because I'd been so focused on Caleb I'd neglected the rest of my family. We had dinner at my house, Sarah's house technically, but it still felt like mine, along with Mrs. Alden and her daughter and Marcus. 9 people crammed around my dining room table, passing dishes and telling stories and laughing. No cat food this time, just turkey and stuffing and all the traditional fixings. "This is nice," my daughter said quietly. "Better than I expected." "Life's been surprising lately," I agreed. After dinner, we sat in the living room while the kids played with Marcus, who turned out to be surprisingly good with children. Mrs. Alden was teaching my son-in-law to play chess. Sarah and my daughter were comparing horror stories from their respective jobs. It felt like family. Real family. Not the toxic mess I'd been living in for years, but something genuine and warm. That's when the doorbell rang. Marcus answered it, his hand automatically going to his holstered gun. I heard voices, then Marcus called out, "Mr. Ward, you have a visitor." I went to the door. Standing on my porch, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her, was Emma, Caleb's daughter, my granddaughter. She was 10 years old with dark hair in braids and eyes that looked too old for her age. She was holding a backpack and shivering in a jacket too thin for the weather. "Grandpa?" she said, and her voice cracked. "Can I come in?" I pulled her inside immediately, wrapping her in a hug. She was freezing. "Emma, what are you doing here? Where are your parents?" "In jail still. I've been staying with my mom's sister, but she's mean. She says I'm too much trouble. She says—" Emma's voice broke completely. "She says nobody wants me." My daughter appeared at my side. "Who is this?" "My granddaughter, Caleb's daughter." I looked down at Emma. "Sweetheart, how did you get here?" "I took a bus. I saved my lunch money for 3 weeks. I didn't know where else to go. I'm sorry." She started crying, and I held her while she sobbed. My daughter was already on her phone, probably calling someone official. Sarah brought blankets. Mrs. Alden made hot chocolate. We got Emma settled on the couch, warm and safe, before dealing with the logistics. A social worker had to be called. So did the police, to make sure Emma wasn't reported missing. Brianna's sister had to be contacted. It turned out Emma hadn't told anyone she was leaving. She'd just walked out with her backpack and disappeared. Her aunt had assumed she was at a friend's house. "You can't just run away," I told Emma gently. "People were worried." "No, they weren't," she said flatly. "Nobody cares. Not since Mom and Dad got arrested. Everyone treats me like I'm invisible. Or like I'm bad, too." My heart broke. The social worker arrived an hour later. She was sympathetic, but firm. Emma would have to return to her aunt's house temporarily. Foster care was being considered if Brianna's sister couldn't manage. "No," I said. "She stays here." The social worker looked surprised. "Mr. Ward, are you sure? Given your age and the situation with your son?" "I'm sure. She's my granddaughter. She stays with me." "It's not that simple. There are procedures, background checks, home studies." "Then start them. But in the meantime, she stays here." We argued for 20 minutes before reaching a compromise. Emma could stay with me temporarily while the paperwork was processed, but the social worker would do check-ins, and I'd have to go through the official fostering process. Fine. I'd do whatever it took. After the social worker left, I sat with Emma in the living room. Everyone else had given us space. "Why did you come here?" I asked. "You barely know me. Your dad and we're not exactly on good terms." "I know. I heard everything. The arguments, the phone calls, Mom telling people you're crazy." Emma looked down at her hands. "But I also remember when I was little, before everything got bad. You used to tell me stories, and you always gave the best birthday presents. And once, when I fell off my bike and needed stitches, you held my hand in the hospital." I did remember that. 5 years ago, Caleb had been too squeamish to stay in the room. "Mom and Dad did bad things," Emma continued. "I'm not stupid, I know that. But you're not bad. You're the only person I could think of who might actually want me." "I do want you," I said, and realized I meant it completely. "You can stay here as long as you need to." She hugged me, and I held her, This child who'd been caught in the crossfire of adult greed and stupidity. She didn't deserve any of this. None of us did. But at least I could give her stability. Over the next few days, Emma slowly came out of her shell. She was smart, almost eerily so, and had a dark sense of humor that reminded me uncomfortably of Caleb before he'd turned into a monster. But she was also kind. She helped Sarah with dishes without being asked. She played chess with Mrs. Alden. She made Marcus laugh. She fit. My daughter stayed an extra week to help Emma settle in. They bonded over a shared love of mystery books. Before she left to go back to Phoenix, my daughter pulled me aside. "You're doing a good thing, Dad. I'm making up for lost time. I was so focused on Caleb that I forgot about Emma. I won't make that mistake again." "What about the trial? When you testify, Emma will have to know everything." I'd been thinking about that. "She already knows most of it. She's been living with the aftermath. But yeah, we'll need to talk. Help her understand that loving someone doesn't mean accepting their terrible behavior." "That's a hard lesson. It's a necessary one." The week before Christmas, I took Emma shopping. She needed winter clothes, school supplies, things her aunt hadn't bothered to provide. We went to the mall, which was packed with holiday shoppers and loud music and chaos. Emma loved it. She hadn't been shopping in months, she told me. No money for anything except basics. "Pick out whatever you need," I said, "and a few things you just want." She looked at me suspiciously. "Really?" "Really. This is what grandparents do." We filled 2 shopping carts: clothes, books, art supplies, a new bike. Emma kept asking if I was sure if it was too much. I told her nothing was too much. At checkout, the cashier commented on how much we were buying. "Someone's going to have a good Christmas." "Yes," I agreed. "Someone is." That night, Emma and I decorated the house for Christmas. I hadn't bothered with decorations in years, but Sarah had bought a tree, and Mrs. Alden had donated boxes of ornaments. We hung lights and tinsel and made the place look festive. Emma stood back and studied our work. "It's nice, like a real home." "It is a real home. Your home, if you want it." She looked at me with those 2 old eyes. "What about my parents? When they get out of jail?" "They'll have to prove they can take care of you properly. Until then, you're with me. And if they can't prove it, then you're still with me." She thought about that, then nodded. "Okay, I can live with that." Christmas Eve, we had another dinner, smaller this time. Just Emma, Sarah, Mrs. Alden, Marcus, and me. We exchanged gifts. Emma gave me a drawing she'd made, a picture of this house with all of us standing in front of it. Stick figures, but recognizable. She'd labeled us Grandpa, Sarah, Mrs. Alden, Marcus, and me. I framed it and hung it in the living room. Christmas Day was quiet. Emma opened her presents with a kind of careful wonder, like she couldn't quite believe they were real. After, we watched old movies and ate too much food and just existed together. It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. The trial started the 2nd week of January. The courthouse was packed, media everywhere, spectators filling every seat. Caleb and Brianna sat at the defense table looking miserable. They'd both lost weight. Brianna's hair was unwashed. Caleb's expensive clothes had been replaced by a cheap suit that didn't fit. I was called to testify on the 3rd day. I walked to the stand trying not to look at Caleb. Failed. Our eyes met for a second, and I saw such hatred there that it made me flinch. The prosecutor asked me to describe what happened. I told the truth. All of it. The voice recording. The house showings. The birthday dinner. The harassment afterward. I spoke clearly and calmly. And when I was done, there wasn't a sound in the courtroom. The defense attorney tried to shake my testimony during cross-examination, tried to make me look vindictive, unstable, manipulative. "Isn't it true that you planned this entire situation to hurt your son? That you manipulated events to make him look bad?" "No," I said. I documented events as they happened. I didn't manipulate anything. I just stopped being a doormat. A few people in the gallery laughed. The judge gavelled them silent. The defense attorney tried a different angle. You gave away your house to hurt your son, didn't you? I gave away my house to thank someone who saved my life. My son's reaction to that is his problem, not mine. You're a spiteful old man who— Objection, the prosecutor interrupted. Argumentative. Sustained, the judge said. Move on, counsel. The attorney had no more questions. I stepped down. Sarah testified next, then Mrs. Alden, then Detective Chen, then a parade of Caleb's other victims, people from all over the country who'd been scammed over the years. By the end of the prosecution's case, Caleb looked like a man who knew he was finished. The defense barely put up a fight. Brianna testified, crying through her whole testimony about how they'd only been trying to help me, how everything had been misunderstood. Nobody believed her. Caleb didn't testify. His lawyers probably knew he'd be eviscerated on cross-examination. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the forewoman read the verdicts, guilty on all counts. Caleb's face went blank. Brianna started crying again. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I gave a brief statement. Justice has been served. I hope my son uses his time in prison to become a better person, but I won't be waiting for him. That night, I told Emma about the verdicts. She took it better than I expected. I knew they were guilty, she said quietly. I just hoped— I don't know what I hoped. You hoped your parents would be better than they are. That's normal. That's love. Is it okay to love them, but not want to live with them? More than okay. It's healthy. She hugged me. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, I said. You're stuck with me now.